Most companies die because they can't answer one question. Are you a feature, a product, or a platform? Here's how one founder turned a $0 feature into a $1.4 billion platform. And the framework works for any business. There's a framework every founder should understand. You start with a feature, then you build a product, then you create a platform. It sounds simple, but most companies never make it past the first stage. They build something useful, something people want, but they never figure out how to evolve it into something indispensable. Oscar Haugland used this framework to guide Epidemic Sound from scrappy startup to $1.4 billion company, and he's brutally honest about where they started. In the early days when Epidemic launched, I would 100% argue that we were a feature. We were a one-trick pony. We were a nice-to-have and not a need-to-have. To understand why Epidemic Sound started as just a feature, you need to understand the problem they were solving. Oscar and his 4 co-founders came from traditional TV production. They'd made shows, they understood storytelling, and they saw earlier than most that the internet was transforming. It was moving from text to images to video, and they were convinced everything online would eventually be video-centric. But they also knew from TV production experience that while most technical problems could be solved, music was a nightmare. Music licensing was a complex legacy business that had evolved over decades. Getting the rights to use a song in a TV show was difficult. Getting the rights to use it online, where consumption would happen instantaneously all over the world, was essentially impossible. So they decided to solve it. But the solution wasn't what anyone expected. And this is where the story reveals something crucial about innovation that most founders miss completely. The solution wasn't technical, it was legal. This shows how sometimes the biggest innovations aren't about building better technology. They're about rethinking the fundamental structure of an industry. The traditional music industry operates on a model of representation. When a track is created, there are multiple stakeholders: the producer, the artist, the songwriter, the label, the publishers, the performing rights organizations. They all contribute fractional pieces of value. They all feel entitled to the upside. But nobody has final say. Nobody can unilaterally decide how or where the track gets used. And they have 2 things in common, Oscar notes. They all sort of hate each other with a passion, because they have very competing views about who contributed the most value, and they all have veto rights. If any single party was unhappy with a commercial deal, the track couldn't be used. Your video couldn't go on YouTube or TikTok. The whole thing fell apart. Epidemic Sound's innovation was to move from a model of representation to one of ownership. They would pay artists handsomely up front and acquire all the rights. Complete ownership. This meant they could be the only provider in the world with a complete catalog where they could tell creators, you can use this music for all of your content, across all platforms, across the entire world, and we'll indemnify you. There was instant product market fit. Creators were desperate for this solution. But Oscar is clear about what they had built. We were a one-trick pony. We were more like a vitamin, which is great if you take your vitamin in the morning, but if you forget, you still live. You want to be something which is a necessity. If you're building something, or want to understand how companies scale from 0 to billions, subscribe so you catch every framework we break down. This is the feature stage. You've solved a problem. People want what you've built. But you're not essential. You're not woven into the fabric of how people work. So how do you evolve from feature to product? For Epidemic Sound, the answer was software, but not in the way you'd expect. What they built next is what separated them from every competitor and made them indispensable. They needed to complement their legal innovation with technology that made them indispensable. Let's make sure we become a sound tracking platform. We want to be at a point where we understand our customers so well that they cannot think about editing a video without having all of our tools made available to them. This is a crucial transition that many companies miss. They think solving the initial problem is enough. But moving from feature to product means becoming integrated into your customer's workflow. It means understanding not just the problem you solve, but the entire context in which that problem exists. For Epidemic Sound, this meant building tools that helped creators find the right music, that integrated with their editing software, that understood their brand and their audience. It meant becoming part of the creative process, not just a vendor of licensed music. We realized we're past feature. We're a product now. We're integrated. We work with millions of content creators. We soundtrack 70% of all the world's biggest YouTubers. But here's what most people don't understand about this transition. Becoming a product isn't just about adding features. It's about changing the relationship you have with your customers. When you're a feature, customers use you when they need you. When you're a product, you become part of their identity as creators. Oscar's team realized this when they started seeing creators say, "I'm an Epidemic sound creator," rather than, "I use Epidemic sound." That shift in language represented a fundamental shift in relationship. The platform wasn't just solving a problem anymore. It was enabling a way of working, a creative philosophy, a community of like-minded storytellers who shared similar values about quality and professionalism. But even becoming a product isn't the end goal. The real transformation happens when you become a platform. And this is where Oscar's story takes a fascinating turn, because it involves recognizing a pattern that one of the world's most successful companies had already discovered. About 6 months ago, we realized we're having our Amazon moment. What does that mean? At some point, Amazon looked at all the infrastructure they'd built to run their own business and realized, why don't we open this up as a product for the rest of the world? They called it AWS, Amazon Web Services, and it became one of the most profitable products in the company's history. Epidemic Sound realized they were in a similar position. They had built incredible infrastructure for understanding content, for analyzing what works, for matching music to stories, for processing massive amounts of data about viewer engagement and emotional response. We've gone to a point where we are probably the best positioned company in the world to understand how content performs, what drives engagement, what creates emotional connection. Why keep that just for ourselves? This evolution from feature to product to platform isn't just about business strategy. It's about understanding value creation at a fundamental level. A feature solves a problem. A product becomes part of a workflow. A platform enables an entire ecosystem. The lesson for anyone building a company is this: be brutally honest about what stage you're at. If you're a feature, don't pretend you're a platform. Focus on becoming a product. If you're a product, start thinking about how you become a platform. And at each stage, ask yourself, what would it take to become indispensable? What would it take to become so woven into our customers' lives that they can't imagine working without us? That's the journey from feature to product to platform. That's how you build something that lasts. If you want to master the frameworks that turn ideas into billion-dollar platforms, hit subscribe now. And don't stop here. The next video breaks down AI innovation and the future of content creation. Click it and keep the momentum going.